We now present this evening's edition of the On the Mark program, which will feature the NIA 2026 budget address at the Assembly Chambers in Charlestown, which was aired on Tuesday, 2nd December 2025. The budget address was delivered by Premier Mark Brantley.
Madam President, I rise to move that the bill shortly entitled Needless Appropriation 2026 Bill 2025 be read a second time and to commence the debate on this annual rite of passage, which is our budget discussion. Madam President, you have noted that we have obtained the fiat from Her Honor, our Deputy Governor General, as required by law. And so, with your permission, I will proceed to read the customary budget address and by so doing commence the discussion and the debate that is to follow. Madam President, I beg leave to move the second reading of the bill shortly entitled the Appropriation Ordinance 2026-2025. It is truly an honor and privilege for me this morning to rise and present this budget under the theme, A Purpose-Driven Agenda, Building Our Sustainable Future. Madam President, the budget that I present today reflects our collective commitment to responsible governance and prudent fiscal management. This exercise annually affords us the opportunity to account for our stewardship, while providing the opportunity for us to seek approval for the implementation of our plans and proposals for the upcoming fiscal year. The programs I will outline seek to lay the framework for development in a manner that harmonizes my administration's policies with the plans of our private sector partners in a way that will stimulate economic growth and lay the foundation for building our sustainable future. The theme of this presentation also builds on the strategy adopted in my last budget presentation, where the focus was on investing to build a framework to support a resilient and sustainable economy. It was just a few months ago that we celebrated our 42nd anniversary of self-determination and nationhood under a similar theme. Developing a sustainable future then and now continues to be our goal. Both themes emphasize that our nation's continuous progress should endeavor to fulfill our present needs without harming future generations' ability to meet their own needs. In our relentless efforts to improve conditions, adapt to new challenges, and find solutions for development, we must manage our resources in a way that does not deplete them for generations to come. In short, perpetual progress towards a sustainable future is a dynamic process of securing the livelihood and well-being of both our current and future generations. Madam President, as we look towards a sustainable future, we must be prepared to implement bold and transformative initiatives. We must continue to evaluate our economic outlook, our progress in healthcare, education, human development, and national security, our infrastructural development, agriculture, food security, green energy development, housing, and poverty alleviation. These are all key factors that impact our sustainable future. A thorough review of these will clearly show that over the years we have made significant gains in constructing the building blocks that allow our citizens and residents to enhance and sustain the quality of their lives and create conditions for them to reach their fullest potential. Indeed, individually and collectively, we are performing exceptionally well in our Social Progress Index. I must make it clear that the future sustainability of our island lies not only in the hands of this competent government, but it also rests on the broad shoulders of our citizens and residents. Put differently, it is everybody's business. Madam President, there's no doubt that in our quest for sustainability, we shall face challenges. As a small and developing state, the challenges to growing our economy will sometimes seem insurmountable. The primary reason is that our economy is so intertwined with the international community that external shocks will inevitably have a negative ripple effect on the local economy. Slow and sluggish growth rates in major economies, high rates of unemployment worldwide, a saturated citizenship by investment market, disrupted supply chains, increasing prices of basic food items, continued challenges in our banking and financial sector, and the decline in business opportunities, especially in the retail sector, arising directly from globalization, are factors which have seriously impeded the opportunities for our small island economy to continue to flourish in a sustainable way. Additionally, the issue of climate change, which is a factor beyond our control, will affect our thrust for sustainability, especially as it relates to our agricultural sector. Climate change is not of our own doing, but poses a significant challenge to food security and sustainability. We are indeed grateful to God, Madam President, that over the past few years, our economy has been spared the wrath of any major hurricanes or tropical storms. We are all aware of the devastating effect they can have on fragile economies like ours, posing a real danger of eroding the gains we have made in a very short time. We must continue to make our economy more resilient so that we can better withstand the negative shocks from these natural disasters. Madam President, the answer to overcoming these challenges lies in our ability to innovate while creating new opportunities in a diversified and sustainable economy. This is essential if we are to improve the socioeconomic outcomes for all citizens and residents of the island of Nevis. Over the past 5 years, we have made significant investments toward achieving this improved and diversified economy. At every turn, we have kept the best interests of our people at the forefront of our development agenda. Our quest to build a sustainable future is not new. It is an agenda that we have been charting ever since I assumed leadership of this administration. This is evident by the substantial investments we have made in our infrastructural development and our education system through the expansion and upgrading of our schools. We have invested in our youth through a range of programs, including the introduction of technical vocational education training, TVET, as a means of equipping them with technical skills to face the future with confidence. We have taken steps towards energy sustainability through our pursuit of geothermal energy development, which is part of our efforts to make Nevis a clean and green environment. This solid platform for growth and development, which my government has laid over the past several years, has no doubt created an impetus for acceleration into the future. We must now seek to introduce new and bold ideas for growth and development to continue that acceleration. The South Coast development, enabled by the Special Sustainability Development Zone Act, is one such new and bold initiative. As we chart this new course, it is incumbent on us to prepare ourselves positively to embrace change. Let us all work towards repositioning ourselves and seek to capitalize on the tremendous opportunities that this and other transformative developments will bring to our sustainable future. Let me turn my attention now, Madam President, to the international and regional economic developments. As we turn to the regional and economic outlook, the global economy is expected to enter a new phase of volatility and adjustment over the medium term. This will be driven by a variety of factors, such as persistent geopolitical tensions, trade policy shifts, particularly as it relates to the United States of America's implementation of tariffs, the resultant financial market uncertainty, and the current tensions in the Southern Caribbean Sea surrounding events in Venezuela. The International Monetary Fund in its World Economic Outlook report for October 2025, titled Global Economy in Flux, Prospects Remain Dim, predicts that the global economic growth rate will decelerate from 3.3% in 2024 to 3.2% in 2025 and 3.1% in 2026. Advanced economies are expected to only grow by 1.5% in 2025 and 2026, while emerging economies will fare slightly better, with growth prospects predicted to be around 4% for 2025 and 2026. The report also downgraded the growth outlook for the USA, with growth moving from 2.8% in 2024 to a mere 2% in 2025 and a slight rebound to 2.1% for 2026. This global outlook is indeed dim, and the more the global economy becomes fragmented, the higher the risk that this outlook could worsen. Madam President, as a small island developing state, with our economy so intertwined with the global economy, it is no secret that the IMF's dim outlook will result in negative effects on our local economy. These effects will manifest themselves in higher import bills, increased fuel prices, growing current account deficits, inflation, reduced foreign capital inflows and foreign investments, and a reduction in development aid and an increase in the level of our public debt. It therefore behooves us to continue to build upon our gains and to implement strategies that ensure long-term economic prosperity for all members of our society, without depleting our natural resources or causing social instability. This push for a sustainable economy should not merely focus on short-term profits, but on the continuous well-being of our people and the environment. Madam President, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank has forecast that the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis will expand marginally by 2.5% in 2025. Having only attained a growth rate of 1.17% in 2024, the forecast growth rates of 2.5% for 2025 and 3.29% for 2026 are an improvement in the outlook for the Federation. The initial expectation for 2025 was 3.42%, which highlights and brings into focus the real impacts of the current global uncertainty on the lives and livelihoods of the citizens of small island states like ours. In comparison, the ECCB indicates that the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union grew by 3.68% in 2024 and is predicted to see growth of 3.18% and 3.4% in 2025 and 2026 respectively. To sum it up and put it in context, St. Kitts and Nevis is lagging behind the growth rate predicted for the overall Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. This growth pattern is relatively aligned with that forecast by the IMF for the global economy. The IMF, in its report, did project that global economic growth would remain broadly flat, decelerating from 3.3% in 2023 to 3.1% by 2029. Despite this, Madam President, the ECCB has set a minimum real GDP growth rate target of 5% for the ECCU member territories. To help its member countries strengthen their respective economies, the ECCB continues to provide policy advice on economic matters, public finance management, debt sustainability, and governance. We would like to extend our gratitude to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for its invaluable assistance over the years. Madam President, I now turn my attention to our domestic economic performance. As we examine our domestic economic performance, our recurrent expenditure budget for fiscal year 2025 was set at $203.82 million, while our total revenue expectations were $230.72 million. The recurrent revenue generated as of October 31st, 2025, amounted to $134.66 million, which represents an increase of $6.93 million or 5% when compared to the $127.72 million generated up to October 2024. And for those in the gallery, the reason you're hearing about October is that, of course, the year is not yet finished. So finance is only able to give us numbers up until the third quarter, that is the end of October. This recurrent revenue, coupled with the amount of $53.84 million, which includes funds from development aid and our share of revenue from the CBI program, resulted in an overall total revenue of $188.5 million. This represents an overall increase in total revenue of $0.77 million or 0.4% when compared to the $187.72 million collected up to October 31st, 2024. The tax revenue collected as of October 31st, 2025 amounted to $98.51 million. That represents an increase of $1.57 million or 2% when compared to the amount of $96.94 million collected in 2024. Although value-added tax collections were hamstrung by the National VAT Reduction Program, which was in place for the first half of fiscal year 2025, the receipts collected thus far remain a significant portion of recurrent revenue. The VAT receipts collected as at October 31st, 2025 accounted for 35% of tax revenue and 26% of recurrent revenue. Other key contributors to the revenue for the administration include international financial services at 13%, social services levy at 8%, stamp duties at 8%, import duties at 8%, customs service charge at 7%, and water rates at 5% of recurrent revenue. Madam President, the total expenditure, consisting of both recurrent expenditure and capital expenditure, amounted to $188.36 million for the period ended October 31st, 2025, a decrease of $15.05 million or 7% when compared to the outlay of $203.41 million for the corresponding period ending October 31st, 2024. Recurrent expenditure as at October 31st, 2025 amounted to $149.64 million, a decrease of $9.96 million or 6% when compared to the outlay of $159.6 million for the same period in 2024. My administration was able to keep its recurrent expenditure within the projected limit of $165.07 million for the period up to October 31st, 2025. This achievement was possible despite significant spending on personal emoluments, which made up approximately 50% of recurrent expenditure. Put differently, wages and salaries of public servants continue to eat up 50% of our recurrent expenditure. Goods and services accounting for 19%, and debt servicing consisting of both principal and interest payments, also accounting for 19% of recurrent expenditure, were also major contributors to the total recurrent expenditure. Capital expenditure for the period January to October 2025 was $38.72 million, a decline of $5.0 million or 12% lower than the $43.81 million outlay over the same period in 2024. Of this amount, 80% was primarily funded by direct government revenue, while the remaining 20% was funded through development aid and loans. Capital expenditure currently constitutes 21% of the total expenditure as at October 31st, 2025. Madam President, the capital expenditure for the fiscal year 2024 included an amount of $4.75 million spent on Culturama 50 renovations. Our Culturama 50 homecoming celebration was a major event not only for this administration but for the island of Nevis. We had not yet conceptualized the scale of renovation works at the time of preparing the 2024 budget. Once the scale of work was conceptualized early in the fiscal year, my cabinet took the decision to reallocate resources from other projects to facilitate these renovation works. This expenditure is entirely separate to the amounts allocated each year as a subvention for the hosting of Culturama. The subvention is primarily to supplement the revenue generated from the Culturama activities, to enable the Culturama Secretariat to make payments to patrons, vendors, and other persons providing services for hosting this annual event. Madam President, some good news. Our overall fiscal performance remains strong as of October 31st, 2025. Our primary balance has soared to a healthier surplus of $27.84 million, a substantial improvement from the $13.25 million surplus reported in October 2024. The overall balance also is trending in this direction, moving from a deficit of $3.16 million to a surplus of $11.6 million over the last 12 months. The fiscal gap has also narrowed significantly, moving from an initial deficit of $19.35 million at the end of October 2024 to a much smaller deficit of $3.52 million at the end of October 2025. Madam President, I want to pause there just to say that this report demonstrates that we are seeking to bring down expenditure while increasing revenue. And that, I think, is the formula that will achieve long-term sustainability in the government's finances. This government has always sought to ensure that the public accounts of the NIA are laid before the House within the timeline as mandated in our Constitution and our financial regulations. The report from the Director of Audit, which I have laid today, would have referenced the office of the opposition leader. I want to just point that out at the outset, Madam President. The report of the Director of Audit laid today references the office of the opposition leader, which is an error in wording. It should have read the office of the opposition, referring to the expenditure incurred for salaries and constituency allowances paid to members of the opposition. Therefore, Madam President, it should not be construed to mean expenditure relating to the upkeep of a physical office for the leader of the opposition. Ideally, this government would have no objections to maintaining such an office. But alas, the members opposite up until this time have failed to agree among themselves who should occupy the post of leader of the opposition. Soon as they agree, we will respond. Performance of the value-added tax. Madam President, as indicated earlier, the value-added tax continues to be a major revenue source for the administration. VAT revenue generated as of October 31st, 2025 stood at $34.62 million, representing 26% of total revenue. This is in line with the $34.81 million collected for the period October 31st, 2024. Of this, VAT revenue generated from the consumption of domestic goods and services stood at $21.9 million, representing 63% of total VAT collected to date, while the VAT revenue collected from international trade stood at $12.72 million, representing 37% of the total VAT collected to date. The total VAT revenue generated for the entire fiscal year 2024 was $42.15 million. It is anticipated that the total VAT revenue for this fiscal year will exceed that collected for 2024, as a large portion of this revenue is normally generated during the last quarter of the year, arising from the increased importation of items at the Customs Department and an uptick in activities at the start of the tourist season. The growth in VAT revenue for this fiscal year will be lower than anticipated, as our projections were negatively impacted by the decision at the federal level to grant temporary relief to our citizens through a reduction in the VAT rate from 17% to 13% for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. And let me pause here, Madam President, to point out to the House and to the public that this continues to create some difficulties in Nevis for our planning, because we will present our budget as we're doing today based on certain projections, based on existing tax rates, and then a week or two later the federal government presents its budget and sometimes announces tax and other fiscal impositions that then impact directly the budget presented in Nevis. We clearly need better coordination between the federal government in Bastille and the local government here in Nevis on such matters, Madam President. I am proud, however, to say that despite this decision made at the federal level to reduce the rate of VAT for the first 6 months of 2025, that through our collection efforts in Nevis, we are still anticipating that we will beat the benchmark that we set in terms of VAT collections. The VAT revenue of $21.9 million collected at the Inland Revenue Department was an increase of $1.19 million or 6% when compared to the $20.7 million generated for the corresponding period in 2024. Mark you, this is at a reduced rate of VAT for the first 6 months. We were still able to increase the amount collected by 6%. However, the VAT revenue of $12.72 million collected at the Customs Department decreased by $1.38 million or 10% in comparison to the $14.1 million collected for the same period in 2024. On further examination of the effects on revenue, it was noted that the VAT reduction relief program had a greater negative effect on the revenue generated at the Customs Department, as that incentive was geared towards entities in the 17% VAT tax bracket. The effect on VAT generated at our Inland Revenue Department was minimal, as most entities paying VAT to that department fell into the 10% VAT bracket. Nevertheless, this trend in VAT revenue collections is a clear indication that our economy is trending in the right direction. Let me look now at the question of our public debt. Madam President, as it relates to the status of our public debt, the Nevis Island Administration government debt stock portfolio as of October 31st, 2025 stood at $474.7 million, representing a 1% decrease from the $479.5 million recorded in December 31st, 2024. During this review period, domestic debt totaled $453.04 million, accounting for 95.4% of the total central government debt, while external debt amounted to $21.6 million, or 4.6% of the total. When combined with the debts of statutory corporations, the total public sector debt amounted to $541.5 million as of October 31st, 2025, reflecting a 1.35% decrease compared to $548.9 million recorded on December 31st, 2024. Our debt stock is high, but it is being reduced systematically by this government. With limited domestic resources, borrowing continues to play a vital role in driving our economic growth and development. Nevertheless, our borrowing strategy remains focused on securing low-cost financing instruments to ensure that the government's capacity to service its existing debt obligations is not compromised. During this fiscal period, in response to the growing demand for housing, the administration secured a $3.6 million loan from TDC Financial Services to finance the acquisition of some 36 acres of land at Garner's estate in the St. James Parish. Additionally, my government negotiated a special financing arrangement with the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank in the amount of $20 million for the purchase of significant lands to facilitate the proposed airport expansion project. Let me now move, Madam President, to job creation and employment. Let us, in that context, look at the state of the local economy. The primary measure of the state of any economy is its ability to create good quality and high-paying jobs. Similarly, the primary measure of the level of employment in our economy is the revenue generated from the social services levy, which is a direct charge on employment income. This is the most appropriate yardstick to measure growth in the number of people employed and in the level of personal income as well. Our revenue collection from Housing and Social Development Levy for the period January to October 2025 amounted to $11.29 million as compared to $12.33 million collected for the entire year of 2024. This is a clear indication that our rate of employment is trending upwards. I think that bears repetition, Madam President. Thus far, as of October this year, we have already collected $11.29 million in Housing and Social Development Levy. That compares to an entire year, 2024, when we collected $12.33 million. It therefore means that we are expected to surpass last year's earnings by some distance. Our mantra has always been jobs, jobs, jobs. Job creation will forever be pivotal in my administration's development strategy. My government continues to make a concerted effort to ensure that year after year, the average number of jobs and the number of people employed on Nevis continues to trend upwards. The data from the St. Christopher and Nevis Social Security Board, their statistics department, indicates that the average monthly number of jobs on the island as of 30th June 2025 was 6,398, an increase of 3% when compared to the 6,234 jobs as of June 30th, 2024. The main sectors of employment are public administration and defense, 29%, hotels and restaurants, trade, 21%, wholesale and retail trade, 11%, and the construction sector, 7%. The average number of persons employed as of June 30th, 2025 was 5,898, an increase of 2% when compared to 5,760 persons employed as of 30th June 2024. This data only refers to reported employment. And we fully know, Madam President, that some self-employed persons are not reporting monthly contributions to the Social Security Office. And neither are those persons who engage in casual employment, registering for Social Security or making any contribution payments. It therefore suggests that the actual job situation is even better than what is currently reported. Like previous years, we continue to see the trend of more jobs than persons being available for employment. 6,398 job opportunities, according to Social Security data, versus 5,898 persons available for employment. This void in the job market continues to be filled by persons holding multiple jobs, especially in the hotel and restaurant sector and with private security firms. Let me use this opportunity and this rostrum, as I do every year, to encourage our people to register with and pay their Social Security. It is not a tax, Madam President. It's an investment in your future. It ensures that when you get old, when you get sick, when you get pregnant, when you retire, that there's something there for you. It's an investment in your future. And so while some people think they're being clever by working under the table, collecting their money and not paying Social Security, they are ultimately hurting themselves, because it means that as they get older, as they get sick, as they get pregnant, as they lose work, that it is more difficult for them to live in that period of their lives. And so I continue to encourage, as I do every year, that our people register for and pay their Social Security. Madam President, the average total gross monthly wages paid as of June 30th, 2025 stands at $24.87 million. Put differently, every month, people in Nevis collect $24.87 million in wages. Again, an increase when compared to the average monthly wage of $22.93 million as of June 30th, 2024. This represents an increase of 9% in gross average monthly wages on Nevis. It should also be noted that the average gross wage per employee stood at $4,215 per month as of June 30th, 2025, which represents an increase of 6% when compared to the $3,984 monthly for the corresponding period in 2024. Not only is the number of jobs increasing, but the average wages of our workers are also increasing, Madam President. More jobs, higher wages. A closer look at the wage distribution of the jobs in Nevis as of June 30th, 2025 shows that 685 persons, representing 11% of the workforce, are being paid at the minimum wage level. So of the number of workers, 685 or 11% are being paid at minimum wage. 841 persons, representing 13% of the workforce, are earning wages of $6,500 and more per month. And 76% of our workforce are earning incomes ranging from the minimum wage up to $6,500 per month. These are signs of a healthy, stable, and a growing economy. Madam President, our commitment to job creation continues to yield positive results, strengthening our economy and providing a sustainable island for our people. Behind these encouraging numbers are our people, whose lives are improving through new opportunities and increased economic security. By focusing on a diverse economy, we are building resilience, reducing our dependence on any single industry. Key sectors such as construction, tourism, and MSMEs are thriving, and we are committed to fostering this growth through strategic investments, targeted support, and partnerships. Let me then move to public-private partnerships for development. Madam President, we continue to present Nevis as a place open for business and looking for real partners to help us achieve our investment goals. We continue to actively seek real investment and private sector-driven opportunities to help us to achieve these goals. We welcome the development of commercial properties at Chapel Street, Bath Gut, and Pump Road, to name a few. We also recently approved concessions for the expansion of another major commercial property in the Charlestown area. These developments will not only provide significant employment opportunities during the construction phase, but will generate substantial economic activities during the operational phase. We commend the developers of these units, while at the same time encouraging our citizens both at home and in the diaspora to seize the opportunity to make similar investments in their home country. Incidentally, and I should say it now, that all of those commercial properties being developed are being developed by local investors who have benefited from significant concessions from this government. Sometimes, you know, Madam President, we hear the talk that foreign investors get treated better. Not under this government. Local investors are encouraged to come. They get the same concessions as those who are coming in from elsewhere. And these are examples that we see all across the island of local investors stepping up. We invite our diaspora, I keep talking about them, We invite our diaspora to come in as well and assist in our development. Our partnership with Radius Holdings, LLC, and Telemed Partners for the operation of call centers on Nevis has grown stronger over the years. The number of employees at the Radius call center operations in Brownhill has increased to 101 persons and is expected to grow by an additional 25 to 30 persons by the end of January 2026. Employment at Telemed Partners call center operations has similarly expanded over the past year, creating much-needed sustainable employment opportunities for our people. This morning on my way here, I confirmed that Telemed now employs 50 persons and expect to add an additional 25 in the new year. Madam President, work on the upgrading of the facilities at the Vance Amri International Airport is moving rapidly. Earlier this year, we finalized an arrangement with the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank for a credit facility of $20 million for the purpose of purchasing the surrounding lands. To date, we have completed the purchase of 18 acres of land on the southern side of the runway, along with the purchase of 27 acres of land on the western side of the airport compound. This administration has secured additional funding in the amount of US $45.6 million to complete the build-out of that facility. This includes the commitment from the government of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for funding in the amount of US $19.2 million to be drawn down over the next 2 years to meet the cost of construction of a new fire station, reconstruction of the control tower, realignment of the Island Main Road, expansion of the passenger terminal building, and the construction of a new customs cargo facility and related works. The Mission Taiwan team visited Nevis in early November and held discussions with our technical team on the project and with representatives from the Ministry of Finance and the legal department to finalize arrangements for the signing of the loan agreement and ultimately the final disbursement of funds. Madam President, first disbursement of funds, forgive me, I'm moving ahead of myself. Madam President, our partnership with a third-party financier, the Drahi Foundation, will provide additional financing in the amount of US $25 million for the completion of works on the airfield. Taiwan is funding on the land side and the Drahi Foundation is funding on the airfield side. These works include the aligning and extension of the existing runway to 6,070 feet, improvement and installation of runway lighting, and the construction of parking spaces for jet traffic, a fuel farm, and related activities. We expect that all arrangements will be in place for groundbreaking and the start of construction early in the new year. The first components of construction will include the realignment of the Island Main Road and the construction of a new fire station, followed by expansion work on the terminal building and the control tower. These works are expected to be funded by the drawdown of funds from the financing arranged for the government of Taiwan. Work on the airfield side of the project will comprise a second phase of the project and is expected to commence in late 2026 to early 2027. We expect that the consultants and designers will have completed their consultations with international aeronautic agencies and finalize the design works for the airside component of the project to begin by that time. Madam President, the establishment of the Special Sustainability Zone, the first of its kind within the Eastern Caribbean, must be seen as a new and proactive approach to public-private sector partnership for development. The build-out of activities within the zone will be a game changer for Nevis, not only elevating our prominence within the region, but also generating significant economic activity across various sectors during both the construction and operational phases. The proposed Destiny development, which is expected to occupy just over 2,000 acres of land, is akin to a high-end ultra-luxury villa and resort development. This development will position Nevis as a destination for high-end investment, surpassing any scale of development that we have seen in our sub-region. I am delighted by the level of public discourse on this proposed development. It demonstrates democracy at work and the need for our people to have a say in the way they wish their country to move forward. My cabinet has held a number of town hall and stakeholder meetings over the past 3 months to garner views that will inform our decisions as to how we move forward. Rest assured, we are taking all the suggestions and recommendations into consideration. Madam President, I wish to assure the public that my government is taking every precaution to ensure that we get the best terms for Nevis. Once we have completed the final negotiations, we'll be in a better position to advise all residents of both St. Kitts and Nevis. The final agreement will be brought to the Assembly, to this Assembly, for ratification, and will be made public as part of the legislative process. Madam President, allow me now to move to an area that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the entertainment industry. Some refer to it as the creative industry, the orange economy, but I'm focused for today's meeting, today's sitting, on the entertainment industry. Madam President, the film industry continues to gain prominence on Nevis. A few years ago, in fact, it was at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, my administration took the bold step to explore new frontiers and embrace the film industry as a means of tapping into the creative ideas and talents of our people, while at the same time providing employment opportunities. We were proud then to have partnered with MSR Media, a UK-based company, which created the foundation by shooting 7 films on the island of Nevis. Madam President, I'm happy to report that Nevis is now becoming one of the destinations of choice for making movies in the Caribbean. During the period January to October 2025, we partnered with several producers to film at least 6 productions on Nevis. Southern Tide fashion brand conducted a fashion shoot marking its 2nd production on Nevis, showcasing their Spring-Summer 2025 collection. A total of 12 incoming cast and crew, in addition to 6 local crew, participated in that event. Madam President, Stone and Spirit Production, through their producers Ed Annunziato and Blair Stewart, filmed the Colonial Churches of Nevis production, which was an exploration of the island's early colonial history. A total of 7 local cast members and crew participated in this event. The famous Pan Girl production, through its producer and director, our own Miss Juliet Jeffers, was a short film depicting the scene of a daughter finding her rhythm in the echoes of her father's music amid the sea breeze and steel pan rhythms of Nevis. A total of 15 incoming crew and cast, along with 17 local crew and 15 background actors, participated in this production. Incidentally, I'm told they had a grand premiere at NEPAC, which I unfortunately missed because I was away, but I'm told it went extremely well. The Real Housewives of Potomac, a Bravo TV production, filmed the Nevis feature segment for the popular U.S. reality series show, highlighting Nevis's luxury, experiences, and natural beauty. A total of 47 incoming cast and crew, along with 24 local cast and crew, participated in that filming. Saint Kissed, not Kitts, Kissed. Saint Kissed, a full-length feature film produced by Octet Productions, was also filmed in Nevis in August of 2025. A total of 40 incoming cast and crew, along with 15 local cast and crew, participated in that event. Apples and Airplanes, a full-length feature film produced by 5-6 Films, was also staged on Nevis. It highlighted a scene of an uptight wedding planner invited by a friend to Nevis where she finds love. Her once uptight persona transforms into a relaxed, warm, and friendly island girl. Love will do that, Madam President. This production featured 30 incoming cast and crew. We also secured PBS. Many of those in the gallery may watch PBS. So PBS Virginia 7 is, I believe, on island already, filming a series called Hometowns, and they'll be doing that throughout the month of December. It is expected that a total of 12 incoming cast and crew will arrive on the island to participate in that filming. And I should add this, that Hometowns is the first international episode that they will film right here on Little Nevis. Madam President, film and media productions continue to serve as a vibrant driver of local economic activity in Nevis. Beyond monetary benefits, these productions provide invaluable tourism exposure, capacity building for local talent, and the promotion of Nevis as a premier film and creative destination. The brand of visibility, brand awareness, and public relations that Nevis has received thus far is most favorable, as reflected in the international network productions and published articles. I should add, it's not on my document, I'm not sure how it escaped, but I should add that we have already had a commitment for early in the new year for a new film. They say it will be a romance film to be done here in Nevis, and it will star African-American actor Taye Diggs, who's famous from his role in How Stella Got Her Groove Back. We hope he's going to find his groove here in Nevis next year. Let me segue now to the all-important tourism sector, Madam President. Despite ongoing global challenges, the Nevis tourism sector continues to demonstrate resilience, creativity, and adaptability. Our strategic focus on staff development, community engagement, cultural promotion, and destination enhancement have yielded impressive results that have strengthened the foundation upon which we continue to build. My government remains committed to empowering our people to maximize the opportunities offered by our tourism industry. Nevis once again made its mark on the regional stage through the Tourism Youth Congress. I would wish to congratulate Ms. Kayla Claxton of the Gingerland Secondary School. She emerged victorious in the local leg of the competition and sponsored by the Bank of Nevis, a local indigenous bank, and represented Nevis at the regional event in Barbados. Madam President, Mango Fest 2025 was another resounding success, confirming its status as one of the most anticipated events on our tourism calendar and rapidly becoming a bucket list event for people around the region and around the world. This event underscores the increasing appeal of our culinary tourism offerings and the dedication of our local chefs, farmers, and vendors. Another significant success was a cross-channel swim, now ably led by Jane Handsome, and which attracted a record 500 swimmers this year. Infrastructure development and heritage preservation remains central to our agenda. The Bath Hot Springs Upgrade Project has been receiving overwhelmingly positive feedback from residents and visitors. This has truly enhanced the visitor experience at that facility. Work on the Bath Hotel renovation project is also progressing significantly. This project, which is coordinated by the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society in collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism, represents an important step towards restoring one of the Caribbean's oldest tourism infrastructural sites. The United States Embassy in Bridgetown has committed funding of approximately $300,000 US, and we are also pursuing additional funding from the CARICOM Development Fund to ensure the timely completion of this iconic heritage project. This project is scheduled for completion during the first half of 2026 and will serve as a national museum preserving and showcasing Nevis's rich cultural and historical legacy. I pause here to thank the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society for their partnership and to urge them to continue to partner with us in a positive way. Madam President, the launch of a refreshed destination branding initiative by the Nevis Tourism Authority was a major highlight of this fiscal year. This rebranding is intended to boost our tourism promotional efforts overseas as we seek to extend our reach into new and emerging markets while maintaining prominent presence in existing markets. These new initiatives, laid out in the Nevis Integrated Marketing Plan, will serve to strengthen Nevis's market visibility, enhance the quality of the visitor experience, and reinforce the island's position as the Caribbean's premier boutique luxury destination. The designation's tagline, Nevis Naturally, was retained, affirming our island's authentic charm and enduring brand strength. More details, of course, will be provided as the Nevis Tourism Authority rolls out its marketing plan in the new fiscal year. I want to pause here, Madam President, to say that Nevis did something truly historic, some may say controversial. We had some aspects of our new launch done in black and white. And we are so accustomed to the Caribbean being done in vibrant color that we recognize that some, especially some locally, had some criticisms of that effort. But in a crowded market, we understand that to be noticed, one must stand out. And that black and white depiction of some aspects of Nevis caused us to stand out significantly when we premiered our new launch in New York in June of this year. I can now report that as a consequence of those efforts, led by a firm called Tambourine, that Nevis has now received an international award for its relaunch and its marketing. Madam Speaker, as it relates to visitor arrivals, we continue to support flights into the Vance Amory International Airport through partnerships with Cape Air and Winair. In fact, Winair has most graciously agreed to expand their service now to a daily service to St. Martin. In the area of cruise arrivals, we expect a total of 69 cruise calls for this season, with a carrying capacity of 15,769 passengers. This is an improvement of 25% when compared to the cruise sector arrivals for last season. Turning now to our projections for 2026, the New River project will receive priority attention, with a focus on improved bathroom facilities and landscaping, transforming that area into a more visitor-friendly heritage site. The site, which is one of the last sugar mill operations on the island, continues to garner much interest from our visitors. The Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park will celebrate its 5th anniversary of operation during the month of December 2026. This widely used facility has hosted a total of 128 community-based events for the period January to October 2025. In fact, Madam President, not even our own government can sometimes get a booking at that facility. It has become the most popular facility for a variety of activities across the island of Nevis. As we look ahead, Madam President, the Ministry of Tourism remains guided by a purpose-driven agenda, one that integrates the 5 pillars of sustainability. And what are they? People, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. We are investing in our people through training and education, protecting our planet by promoting eco-friendly practices, expanding prosperity by strengthening tourism linkages, fostering peace through community and cultural pride, and building partnerships that will position Nevis as a global model for sustainable island tourism. Let me switch now to construction. And before I start on the prepared text, I took a walk in my community this morning, and in the little area that I live in Montpelier, there were 3 villas under construction. 3, within the space of 10 minutes of each other. The construction industry in Nevis continues to be a significant contributor to economic activity. As we traverse the landscape of Nevis, we are amazed by the number of ongoing construction projects, such as the construction of new homes, I just mentioned 3 in my area, extension to existing properties, or construction and expansion of commercial properties. Many of our contractors are indicating the difficulty in attracting suitable skilled workers. This is a clear indication that we're nearing full employment in the construction sector. Further, the data provided by the Department of Physical Planning shows that for the period January to October 2025, a total of 243 applications were received by the department. Of this number, a total of 202 permits have been approved, of which 81 permits were granted for new residential construction, with the remaining 121 permits for building renovation and expansion. Construction work, we advise, has started on most of these approvals. This is a vast improvement when compared to the corresponding period in fiscal year 2024, when only 144 building permits were granted. Moreover, as at October 31st, 2025, there were a total of 162 active construction sites throughout Nevis under periodic monitoring by the officers of the Department of Physical Planning. This is on par with the 168 active construction sites for the same period in 2024. Madam President, the continued growth in this sector is due largely to my government's continued support through our various incentive programs. These programs include the First Time Homeowners Initiative, which is an ongoing program designed to incentivize first-time home construction. I am happy to report that the Ministry of Finance has approved a total of 37 new applicants for enrollment in this program for the fiscal period up to October 31st, 2025. Under these programs, prospective homeowners are granted exemptions from the payment of customs duties and customs service charges on all building materials. This program, along with our incentive program for commercial development and villa condo development, will continue into the new fiscal year. So if there are members out there in the gallery looking to own your first home, the government is partnering with you to make it more affordable. As a new initiative for this fiscal year, we expanded the program to incentivize persons to build additional homes or renovate and expand their existing home through our Build and Renovate program. I want to pause there, Madam President, because prior, it was only for people who were building their first home. The response has been so good that we have said, listen, if your family has grown and you want to expand your existing home, or if you have money and you want to invest in an additional home, we will extend the concessions to you as well under a Build and Renovate program. So we have two programs now running. First Time Homeowners program, and we have the Build and Renovate program. A similar incentive has now been extended to those investing in commercial construction. I am happy to report that up to October 31st, 2025, a total of 82 persons have been enrolled in this Build and Renovate program, generating significant economic activity in the construction sector. And let me pause here because I see some representatives here from the business community. We're not only talking about contractors and construction workers. We're talking about those who are selling building materials, TDC hustlers. We're talking about steel benders. I see my friend here, making a lot of money under this government. I'm very happy for him. We're talking about people who are benefiting from these policies. Good governance as work. I invite him to come back over. We intend to continue this Build and Renovate program in the upcoming fiscal year, but with some modifications. The government stands committed to developing a sustainable construction sector as we seek to improve the livelihood of our people and grow Nevis together. Please, for more information, contact our reliable and competent staff at the Ministry of Finance. Let me now move to the agricultural sector. Madam President, the Ministry of Agriculture continues to make remarkable strides in our quest for food security. Our mission remains one of strengthening food security to increase productivity while seeking to build a resilient agricultural and fisheries sector that supports economic growth and community well-being. Madam President, as it relates to agricultural production, Innovation continues to be our watchword as we seek to use modern technology to reduce production inputs while maximizing production yields. We continue to advance green or shade house technology as a preferred mode of production, as this technology continues to prove its efficiency and longevity in boosting production yields. Currently, we have a total of 20 shade houses in operation, with a total cultivation space of approximately 83,272 square feet, producing at least 75% of our stock of leafy vegetables. These shade houses specialize largely in the production of lettuce, celery, kale, and to a lesser extent sweet peppers, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Even with this advancement in technology, we are supplying only a fraction of the demand for food items on our island. Young people, you want to get into something, agriculture. Everybody must eat. There's money in agriculture. The data from our Department of Agriculture indicates that for the period January to October 2025, a total of 32.75 acres were under cultivation by both local farmers and the government. This yielded approximately 343,006 pounds of food crops, such as sweet potatoes, onions, pumpkins, cantaloupe, and cabbage. This is an increase of 3% when compared to the cultivation yield of 333,451 pounds for the said period in 2024. These outputs are only meeting a small fraction of our local consumption demand, as year after year we continue to see the importation of a large quantity of food on a weekly basis. In the area of livestock farming, we continue to encourage the use of intensive and semi-intensive farming techniques to meet the increasing demand for meat and meat byproducts. The data, as provided from our main meat processing facility at the abattoir, indicates that for the period January to September 2025, a total of 143,430 pounds of meat and meat byproducts were processed at this facility. This is on par with the 143,802 pounds processed in 2024. Pork was a leading meat type processed with 67,227 pounds processed in 2025, as compared to the 58,000 pounds processed in 2024, an increase of 16%. The processing of mutton decreased by 3%, moving from 49,083 pounds in 2024 to 47,773 pounds in 2025. The processing of beef and chicken were processed in smaller quantities. Despite this increase in meat products, we are, again, still only meeting a small fraction of our meat consumption needs when we consider the large quantity of meat and meat products that are imported into Nevis on a weekly basis. Madam President, the development of a viable broiler industry is still a priority for my government. I'm happy to report that earlier this year, we signed a contract with Atlantic Poultry Biotech Inc. in the amount of 1.6 million Eastern Caribbean dollars for the construction of a modern purpose-built poultry processing facility at Prospect. Work is progressing, and it is our anticipation that the first phase of construction of this facility will be completed in the next 18 months. Madam President, as it relates to the fishing industry, we continue to work with our fishers, encouraging them to do more in terms of increasing the quantity of fish and other marine products available for local consumption. Earlier this year, the Department of Marine Resources, in collaboration with our fishers, successfully hosted the annual Fish Festival, conducted fish aggregating device and fish pot making workshops, and established sea moss cultivation plots, all of which are designed to support sustainable livelihoods and strengthen our fishing community. During the upcoming fiscal year, the department will embark on the establishment of at least 10 artificial coral reefs, to preserve and enhance our marine ecosystems. This initiative is a forward-looking investment in biodiversity, thus promoting sustainable fishing practices. We continue to make progress toward the development of a new landing site for the Newcastle fisher folk, thus providing a safer, more efficient base for fishing operations and services. Madam President, our Agricultural Open Day, now referred to as Agri-Expo, has evolved and matured to become a premier activity on the annual calendar of events, highlighting the significant work being undertaken by the Ministry and Department of Agriculture. The Expo has grown tremendously and is now attracting attention and attendance from the Federation and the sub-region. This event, which started on the grounds at Prospect Agricultural Station, quickly outgrew that space, resulting in its relocation to the ETW Park. This is the largest showcase of our advances in agricultural production and innovation as it relates to crop production and animal farming. Madam President, the year 2026 will mark the 30th anniversary of the Nevis Agri-Expo and will be hosted under the theme, Rooted in History, Utilizing Land and Sea, Agri-Expo 30. The Agri-Expo has served as a proud showcase for our farmers, fishers, artisans, and cultural groups, highlighting the diversity and strength of Nevisian agriculture and craftsmanship. Next year's celebration will not only honor our agricultural legacy, but also underscore our ability to continue to blend innovation with tradition. The department, our farmers, and our fishers are all already gearing up for this event, at which we expect to have a massive display of crops, animal and fish products, in demonstration of our commitment to building a sustainable future as it relates to food production. To further enhance agricultural productivity, the Ministry seeks to procure 2 new tractors to improve land preparation efficiency and reduce delays being experienced by farmers. This will enable better planting schedules and higher yields. To improve staff welfare and operational efficiency, the Ministry proposes to commence preparatory work on the reconstruction of its office complex at Prospect. The proposed facility is intended to comprise a 2-story building, providing at least 24,000 square feet of office space, thus enhancing productivity and providing a far better work environment for the staff. Let me turn now, Madam President, to our financial services sector. Regarding our financial services sector, our primary goal has been to increase activities in this sector by at least 50% annually over the medium term. To achieve this, we have invested in our human resource development, invested in technology to enable us to be more proactive in identifying and monitoring risks, continued to amend and update the legislation governing the sector to keep us competitive, continued to foster a culture of compliance, and improved our efficiency through revamping our onboarding procedures. We have introduced more value-added services to our sector, inspired the growth of small firms into larger units, and incentivized the redomiciling of large value-added entities to our jurisdiction. This sector continues to provide significant economic value to the economy of Nevis. The government revenues generated directly from this sector for the period January to October 2025 stood at $16.8 million. The projected outcome for the year 2025 is very favorable, especially when we compare our current performance thus far to the outturn for the entire fiscal year 2024, where the amount of $16.85 million was collected. Let me just emphasize, we have already, as of October this year, collected $16.8 million. And for the whole of last year, we collected $16.85 million. These outcomes are borne out by the activities at the registry monthly. I am really happy to report that as of October 31st, 2025, the total active entities currently unregistered at the Financial Services Registry stood at 18,780. This is an increase of 20% when compared to the total of 15,685 entities on register as at October 31st, 2024. Further, a total of 3,103 new entities were incorporated during the period January to October 2025, comprising IBCs 2,296, LLCs 672, trusts 105, multiform foundations 30. Madam President, to broaden the array of financial services products available in our jurisdiction, my administration in October 2025 enacted legislation to allow for the incorporation of limited liability partnerships. We came into this very House and passed that law. This is in addition to our earlier enactment this year of legislation for the operationalizing of an online gaming sector on NEVIS. As it relates to the online gaming sector, my administration took the decision to work with a single entity through a process referred to as sandboxing. Under this process, there will be no proliferation of registered agents, licensing entities at this time. This sandboxing method will allow the government the time to monitor and adjust our approach as we seek to determine the generally accepted industry best practice for online gaming, after which we will open the sector for wider participation by registered agents. Madam President, this approach allows us to better manage the risks associated with this particular product. Further, the activities falling within this sector are very much ring-fenced, as none of the activities are carried out within our jurisdiction and our citizens are not permitted to participate. Put differently, ladies and gentlemen, there will be no access by residents of St. Kitts and Nevis to online gaming as is contemplated by this legislation. It must be made clear that the entities which are licensed to be involved in online gaming activities will carry out their gaming activities elsewhere throughout the world and not on the island of Nevis. It is anticipated that the administration will receive a portion of the license fee of between $7,500 to $8,000 from each entity licensed to carry out online gaming activities. These two products add variety to our existing suite of products and offer our clients a wider variety of instruments for their investment decisions. These were all done after careful consultation with industry practitioners, keeping true to our goal of having a sector primarily driven by the market demands as indicated by our industry professionals. Put differently, the government is not sitting and deciding what the industry needs. The government is listening to the industry and responding to what the industry says that it needs. So it's very much a private sector driven approach that we've taken. Madam President, we value the public-private sector partnership that underpins growth and development in this sector. We commit to facilitating dialogue and new product development dictated by the market needs as communicated to us by industry professionals. We continue to attract a cadre of well-known and widely respected providers from the Latin American market and other regions into our jurisdiction. A total of 4 new entities filed applications and were duly licensed as trust and corporate service providers during this fiscal year. We intend to continue to incentivize the establishment of such entities, which now seek to offer Nevis as a jurisdiction of choice for the Latin American market. Madam President, the recently launched Nevis Finance is meant to be that entity to spearhead our efforts into new and emerging markets. We must take the necessary steps to be more visible internationally and more so in the Latin American market. To this end, my administration has already participated in initiatives as a means of establishing our presence. We were happy to partner with the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners, STEP, in May of this year as the main sponsor of the STEP Caribbean Conference. Additionally, in September 2025, our legal advisor led a delegation consisting of representatives from our regulation and supervision department, along with several registered agents, to the STEP LATAM conference in Mexico. Our attendance at this conference provided yet another opportunity for us to develop that close link with the Latin American market. Madam President, I returned to the island just 2 days ago from Panama, where I engaged with leading law firms there to promote a greater business outreach with Nevis. These initiatives all collectively form part of our outreach strategy as we seek to grow the sector in a sustainable manner through the inclusion of more value-added services. Madam President, the international banking sector continues to be an area attracting high levels of interest. To date, there are 6 international banks licensed and operational on Nevis, employing a combined total of 75 employees. In addition, we have received applications from 3 additional entities seeking to be licensed. Our regulators are presently reviewing these applications and will make recommendations in due course. We expect that these new entities will add value to our financial services sector and see additional high-paying jobs being created on Nevis. I wish to pause to commend the staff of the Financial Services Department for their dedication and commitment over the years in enabling this and previous administrations to successfully advance this sector. We truly value your service, as there is no doubt that we have now developed a competent cadre of staff, fully supported by the team at our legal department, to regulate activities across the various product types. I wish to personally, and on behalf of this government, thank our former regulator, Ms. Heidi Lynn Sutton, for her contribution to the development of the sector over the past 10 years. Madam President, we are actively in search of a replacement regulator, and it is our hope that early in this new year, we will have a full-time regulator in place. Switching attention now then to infrastructural development. Madam President, as it relates to our physical infrastructure, the Department of Public Works undertook significant renovation and upgrading works on the supply office compound to create a more work-friendly space and customer-oriented environment. This work was done with the aim of enhancing the general security at that compound. Similar work was undertaken at the Nevis Craft House, with some major repairs being done to sections of the roof of the building, along with renovation of the internal spaces to enhance the working environment and increase productivity. During the upcoming fiscal year, the Public Works Department is projected to carry out expansion work at the eastern end of the Nevis Craft House building to provide additional working space. We have allocated funds in this budget to cover this renovation and expansion work. The long-awaited construction of the road at Morgan's Estate in Brown Pasture commenced in May of 2025. This includes the construction of 750 feet of concrete carriageway, along with the laying of 1,752 feet of 4-inch water mains. This project, due to its magnitude and the need to prioritize resources, had to be executed in phases. Phase 2 of the project, which is similar in length to Phase 1, commenced in September 2025 and is currently ongoing. During the period June to July 2025, the department also undertook rehabilitation and resurfacing work on a section of the Island Main Road, stretching from the vicinity of the Malcolm Guichard Park to the old Jehovah's Witness Church in Pinnis. Work was also completed on a section of the pedestrian sidewalk along Pump Road, aimed at improving pedestrian safety. These works were in addition to extensive drainage works carried out in Brownhill, the construction of a retaining wall and fencing project in Eden Brown and Butler's Village, along with the installation of a pipe culvert with head walls on the road leading to the prison farm. Similar work was done on the reconstruction of the drainage system in Charlestown, stretching from Happy Hill Drive through the Inland Revenue Building. Also, work was done on the drainage system stretching across the Island Main Road in front of the post office, along with the construction of a concrete drain and culvert at Low Street. Madam President, seeking to find cheaper and cleaner sources of energy. This government must be seen as a champion of green energy, not just by words, electric vehicle. Let me turn now to the all-important inclusion and institutional strengthening, ensuring that all citizens, particularly our young people, are equipped for the evolving global landscape. The Ministry of Education has made tremendous progress in transforming teaching and learning to meet the demands of a digital and interconnected world. The creation of the Digital Literacy Guide, with capacity building and technical support from Macmillan Publishing and Digital Schoolhouse, represents a major step forward in equipping both teachers and students with 21st century skills. This program was implemented in primary and secondary schools through partnership with Macmillan Education and Digital Schoolhouse. The distribution of digital devices to students from kindergarten to Form 5 has further expanded access and created greater equity in the classroom. The ministry also proudly supported 13 secondary school teachers to complete the CXC AI for Caribbean Teachers course, advancing digital readiness in our schools. Several strategic initiatives were introduced to enhance teaching and learning. The EduPage platform was extended to primary schools, improving communication and assessment access. The Power Up Math initiative provides targeted support to fifth form students preparing for the 2026 CXC CSEC mathematics examination. The Teaching Excellence Program grant, launched in Term 1 of the 2025-2026 academic year, funded teacher-led innovation projects. Educators also benefited from AI in Education Certificate Program, sponsored by the Ministry and delivered to the Caribbean Examinations Council, CXC. The completion of the first phase of the Commonwealth Local Government Forum TVET project, focusing on training in cosmetology and general construction, has helped to broaden opportunities for technical and vocational advancement. These accomplishments were further supported by the Winsong Foundation, whose donation of school furniture and smart boards, told these are also referred as interactive touch panels, helped to create more conducive and inspiring learning environments for students at the primary and secondary levels. Madam President, the foundation of an educated society is rooted at the primary and secondary levels of education. We must therefore laud the efforts of outstanding performers in the recently concluded CXC and CAPE examinations for the 2024-2025 academic year. Our students did exceedingly well and are worthy of our praise and support. We must salute the work of the hard-working teachers and the parents of these students for their steadfast support in contributing to the students' success. As the Ministry of Education looks ahead at the academic year 2026, the primary focus will be strengthening of literacy and numeracy recovery through targeted interventions and learner support frameworks, advancing technical and vocational education and training TVET through new course offerings, partnerships with the private sector, and expanded short-term certification opportunities. There will also be greater focus on promoting inclusive education, ensuring equitable access and support for diverse learners through data-informed decision-making and capacity building for school leaders, and teachers. The Ministry of Education remains steadfast in its mission to empower learners, support educators, and innovate for the future, creating an education system that is adaptive, inclusive, and prepared to meet the evolving needs of the individual society and the world. Although we enjoy a very high rate of literacy when compared to other countries in the region, we will continue to take the necessary steps to strengthen literacy and numeracy recovery, expand technical and vocational education, and promote inclusive practices that support every learner. We must endeavor to empower our youth through leadership and entrepreneurship development, ensuring they're equipped to contribute meaningfully to national progress. Madam President, as it relates to developing our human capital at the national level, this administration still holds the view that education of any kind is indeed the passport to the future, and that tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. With this in mind, we continue to make training opportunities available for our people to advance themselves at the tertiary education level to fulfill the needs of our country. Each year, my Cabinet approves a list of priority study areas based on the needs of each ministry as we seek to train our people to fill vacant positions not only within the government, but in the island of Nevis more broadly. The priority areas for my government for the year 2026 include education, health, civil engineering, agriculture, information technology, and data analysis. In anticipation of persons wishing to avail themselves of this opportunity for the upcoming fiscal year, we have allocated funding in our 2026 budget to facilitate financial assistance to our students. Over the past 3 years, we have supported a total of 131 students in various disciplines at universities and colleges, of which 58 students are pursuing studies online. Madam President, I continue to make the clarion call for our people. We had some young people here, some have had to leave. But I continue to make the clarion call for them to avail themselves of the free scholarship opportunities for their own advancement. Each year, the government of Taiwan continues to make scholarship opportunities available for educational advancement. I note with concern that while students in our sister St. Kitts are availing themselves of these opportunities in large numbers, our students on Nevis seem not inclined to do so. I have heard every excuse in the book. Taiwan too far. I'll be away from my family. I don't want to go all that distance. Bottom line is we are not availing ourselves of the opportunities. Just in St. Kitts, they're gobbling up the opportunities, while in Nevis, we are sitting back. I wish to urge you as parents, you see who I'm appealing to? The parents. Because even sometimes the children want to go, it's the parents who are saying, you, that's too far from home. I want you closer to me. Parents must encourage the children that there's a need to access these free opportunities for training. It will relieve you and ultimately the students of having to repay loans on completion of their tertiary education. We have opportunities in Cuba, in parts of Europe, in Canada, in Latin America. Scholarship desk has been created at our Human Resource Ministry to assist those who are interested in studying. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. We also have the MUA scholarship, one of the best scholarships available to students each year because they pay for almost everything. And some years, I believe the Minister of Health would say, we are struggling to get 2 people to apply for the MUA scholarship. The Nevis people don't seem to like freeness. It's free, but yet we're having difficulty in people just filling out the application. We also have negotiated with this Destiny Development an annual fund of $1 million US, again demonstrating this government's commitment to higher education for all of our people. Madam President, we recognize that more opportunities are now available for the persons to pursue tertiary training via online programs offered by accredited universities. This government is in full support of these online initiatives for educational advancement, as they allow persons to advance themselves with very little disruption to their daily activities, being able to remain at home, continue to work, and maintain family contacts. We have instituted a policy of granting financial assistance to these persons once their course of study falls within the areas of priority of my government. To date, we have supported a total of 58 persons undertaking online studies with accredited universities in our priority areas. And I should add, incidentally, and thank the members of this cabinet, because hitherto the policy was that there was no assistance to those studying online. We have changed that policy, and now more and more of our students are studying online with some government assistance. Madam President, the uptake of opportunities at the University of the West Indies Open Campus is worth mentioning. I am delighted to report that 17 students recently graduated from that program, with Bachelor of Science degrees having pursued studies in the areas of banking and finance, compliance and corporate governance, management studies, accounting, educational leadership, social work, tourism and hospitality management, criminology, and animal science. Let me shift attention now to the critical sector of health. As it relates to our healthcare sector, our mandate remains steadfast to improve the quality of life for all citizens through accessible health services, robust social protection, and the promotion of gender equality, all essential pillars of a sustainable future. To achieve this, we have placed great emphasis on building resilient systems capable of meeting the evolving needs of our people. We continue to strengthen healthcare infrastructure, adequately equip hospitals and community health facilities, and empower our healthcare professionals to deliver high-quality, efficient, and sustainable care. We recognize that a sustainable future cannot be achieved without a healthy population. Therefore, our focus remains on health promotion, disease prevention, and chronic disease management, while empowering individuals and families to take greater ownership of their own health and well-being. Mental health services continue to be a key priority, with psychosocial support now fully integrated into primary health care. We are advancing the transformation of our community health centers and the Alexandra Hospital into modern, efficient healthcare institutions through ongoing infrastructure upgrades, service optimization, with a renewed focus on quality care, patient safety, and service excellence. I acknowledge, Madam President, that we have fallen behind on the move to complete the new hospital wing. We continue to be in discussions with the appropriate agencies and are now finalizing financing to move forward with this project. Nevertheless, we have provided funding in this budget, as we expect that based on the recommendations made by these agencies, work shall commence in this new fiscal year. The provision of health care is indeed an expensive undertaking, and we acknowledge that the Ministry of Health cannot achieve its objectives in isolation. To this end, we continue to forge partnerships with local, regional, and international agencies to help fulfill our mandate. During this fiscal period, the hospital received a generous donation of 10 hospital beds, while the health center received 2 pelvic examination tables, and the eye clinic received 2 eye examination chairs from the St. Christopher Nevis Social Security Board. We thank them for their partnership. Additionally, the laboratory benefited from the acquisition of a hematology analyzer and 2 blood bank refrigerators funded jointly by this government and the Pan American Health Organization. The dental health unit also received 2 X-ray scanners donated by Ireland Initiative, which significantly enhances diagnostic capacity. Further, the ministry received a donation of mobility devices from the Republic of China, Taiwan, which were distributed to health facilities and individuals across the island. I want to just emphasize, Madam President, as I often do, that when we get these gifts, we don't just keep them at the hospital and health centers. We also go into the community and benefit individuals in their homes who may need these devices to make their lives better. We successfully installed solar PV panels at the Flamboyant Nursing Home with funding through an OECS direct relief project for the Federation. This project, valued at US $250,000, marks a significant step towards sustainability. Some of the funds allocated to Nevis will also support rehabilitation works at the nursing home. Madam President, our commitment to preventative health care remains unwavering. This year, we facilitated a range of health screening programs aimed at early detection and management of diseases. The annual Pap Smear Drive held in January saw participation from 145 females, an increase of 59 over the previous year. We remain grateful to Dr. Dwayne Thwaites and the Urology Associates team for their continued partnership in the annual prostate screening program, which this year benefited 633 males. The annual colon cancer screening program, led by Dr. Spencer Amory, provided surgical services to 25 individuals, while the Nevis Eye Care program, under the leadership of Dr. Raymond Hubie and his team, continues to be a model of excellence in the region, offering routine eye exams, treatments, and surgeries for cataracts, and even more sophisticated surgeries, because I'm told we are now doing corneal transplants at the Alexandra Hospital. Madam President, a new addition to our screening services was a pulmonary clinic initiative spearheaded by Dr. George Binu and the Nevis DC team from the United States. Through 2 missions, patients of all ages received evaluation and treatment for respiratory conditions such as asthma, COPD, sleep apnea, and pneumonia. We thank our own Ursula Phillip for organizing these visits. In fact, Madam President, I learned through these visits that snoring is not a good thing. It used to be that we say when you're snoring, you're sleeping hard. In fact, I have learned that when you're snoring, it's because your body is not getting enough oxygen. So all of you who are snoring is not a good thing. We also express our gratitude to the United States Embassy's Lamat mission, which visited Nevis in March and April, offering specialized services in dentistry, audiology, and emergency medicine. We remain deeply thankful to all of our partners for their continued support and commitment to advancing the health of our people. We also extend our appreciation to the Medical University of the Americas for its continued partnership in our human resource development through the provision of annual scholarships. This year, 2 students were awarded scholarships to pursue studies in pharmacy and information technology, cybersecurity, areas vital to the process of strengthening the capacity and resilience of our healthcare system and our island more generally. Madam President, a resilient health system depends on a qualified and competent workforce. At present, five medical doctors are overseas pursuing specialist training in ophthalmology, radiology, obstetrics and gynecology, and anesthesiology. We are especially grateful to the government of Cuba for its ongoing contribution to the professional development of our healthcare workers. And I use this occasion again to encourage those of our doctors who are here, who are general practitioners, to avail themselves of opportunity to specialize. It is long past due that our local professionals step up and take care of those specialist roles so that we no longer have to import specialist doctors in all of these areas. Locally, 10 nursing students graduated this fiscal year from Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, 3 in midwifery, 3 as registered nurses, and 4 as nursing assistants. In addition, 2 mental health workers participated in a 5-week train-the-trainer program in Taiwan. 2 additional trainees are expected to enroll in the program in fiscal year 2026. I would just wish to add that all who decide to take up nursing benefit from financial assistance from the Nevis Island Administration. So if you're again out there and you're interested in nursing, we are assisting you to achieve your goals. As we move into fiscal year 2026, strategic emphasis must be placed on prevention, early detection, and lifestyle interventions to reduce pressure on our already vulnerable healthcare system. We remain mindful that the stigma surrounding poverty, mental illness, disability, and certain diseases continues to deter individuals from seeking help. Greater public education and community engagement are therefore essential to fostering inclusion and reducing, and I would say eliminating, discrimination within our population. As we turn our attention to the cleanliness of our environment, the Nevis Recycling Project continues to advance environmental sustainability across this island. The Ministry of Education remains a key partner, with students actively collecting plastic bottles and participating in the National School Recycling Competition, helping to reduce plastic waste and promote responsible habits among the younger generation. Madam President, building on these successes, the pilot expansion program to introduce recycling initiatives into more communities has already begun. Our recycling facility at the solid waste disposal site is now fully operational, and a new baler has been purchased to produce heavier, more compactable bales for export. With 2 balers now operational, efficiency and processing capacity have increased substantially. A dedicated recycling truck was also procured to support collection efforts and will become operational in the new year. We are also embarking on a massive island-wide cleanup of abandoned cars and white goods. These are being crushed and exported from the island. Incidentally, white goods means refrigerators, stoves, microwaves, washing machines, etc. They're not all white, but they're white goods. So we're encouraging people to make these waste items available so we can collect them, crush them, and get them off Nevis. The Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority remains committed to expanding partnerships, improving infrastructure, and ensuring the long-term success of recycling on the island. Together, we continue to make a positive impact, one bottle, one car, one microwave at a time. Let me look quickly then at housing. Madam President, in the area of housing, we have been very responsive to the needs of our people in providing housing solutions that are sustainable and are of a very high standard. During fiscal year 2025, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation is projected to complete construction of 25 homes at an estimated cost of $6.9 million. Of this number, 8 have been fully completed at a cost of $2.5 million, with the remaining 17 presently under construction and due to be substantially completed by the end of the year at an estimated cost of $4.3 million. These 25 homes are situated at Madden, Cedar View Housing Development, Nisbet Estate, University Heights, Craddock Road, Hamilton, Chimney Crescent, and Rices. For the period 2013 to 2025, the NHLDC has increased its tally of home construction to 346 houses, built at a cost of $76.1 million. When we talk about houses, I don't want, Madam President, for us just to think of houses because people live in them, people own them, families. This is an investment in people and investment in families across Nevis. 346 families now own a house because of the efforts of this government. During the upcoming fiscal year 2026, the NHLDC is projecting to commence and complete construction on at least 34 affordable homes to satisfy the existing demands of our people. These homes will be a mixture of 4, 3, 2, and 1-bedroom units built on approximately 5,000 square feet of land within the corporation's existing developments at Madden, Cedar View, Spring Hill, University Heights, Nisbet Estate, Craddock Road, Hamilton, Chimney Crescent, and Zion New Housing Development. The allocation per housing development is as follows. Madden, 6 homes, Nisbet 1, Craddock Road, Mountain Crest 1, Hamilton 3, Chimney Crescent 2, University Heights 1, and the New River Estate, referred to as Blue Waters Muse Extension, 20 homes. Madam President, I take no responsibility for the names of these housing developments. The new land subdivision at Garner's Estate is expected to be completed and lots available for sale early in the new fiscal year. For those of you out there who want to own a piece of the rock, this is an opportunity for you to do so. The subdivision of this 36.16 acre plot is expected to produce at least 134 residential lots. The proposed model for this high-end development will differ from that adopted for other housing developments carried out by the NHLDC. The NHLDC will not be constructing homes for sale at this development. Instead, our goal is to make the house lots available and allow successful buyers to seek out private contractors to do their construction. Put differently, we're selling you the land, you build your house when you're ready. Additionally, the NHLDC recently purchased 2 acres of land at Hamilton. This plot has already been subdivided into 10 residential lots and offered for sale to prospective buyers. It is anticipated home construction on these lots will commence in the new fiscal year, boosting our already vibrant construction sector. Let me move now then to fiscal measures. We turn our attention then to our fiscal measures. As we make our projections for the new fiscal year, it has become necessary for us to review our tax concession measures and to seek to tighten some of these measures, which were either relaxed in previous years or implemented as a means to aid the recovery process following the COVID pandemic. Although these strategies aided recovery, they are now unsustainable, increasing government revenue losses and creating further fiscal imbalance. We would all agree that our economy has rebounded to the extent that we are seeing growth at pre-pandemic levels across a variety of sectors such as tourism and construction, which has also manifested itself in a high rate of employment across all sectors. Therefore, the time is right to reduce some of these concessionary measures and get our fiscal house back in order. To this end, my government has approved the reinstatement of the unincorporated business tax at its original rate of 4% of gross income with effect from January 1st, 2026. This tax, which is levied on the gross income of unincorporated business entities, was reduced to 2% as a measure to provide temporary relief to our business sector during and after the COVID pandemic. The relief has now lasted for 5 years, and it is time for us to revisit. I want to emphasize, this is not an increase in tax. This is going back to what the rate always was. Madam President, earlier this year, my government approved an island-wide property tax revaluation exercise for all property on island. The purpose of this exercise is to ensure that all properties on island are registered and their current market value accurately recorded on the tax roll. It should be noted that the last property valuation exercise was done in 2007, 18 years ago. Although it was intended that this revaluation exercise should be conducted every 5 years. The process is still ongoing, and it is the intention of my administration to have this exercise completed by March of 2026, so that the revised property tax for all properties can be implemented by the annual property tax due date of June 30th, 2026. Further details will be communicated very early in the new year, ahead of the June 2026 deadline for the payment of property tax. Let me emphasize, we are not increasing the rate of tax. We are simply doing, for the first time in 18 years, a revaluation of the properties on the island, many of which clearly would have appreciated in value over the period of nearly 2 decades. As a measure of enforcement to foster the timely payment of taxes and reduce arrears of revenue at the various departments, we will continue our policy of linking the renewal of various licenses issued by the Inland Revenue Department to the payment of taxes owed, especially to the payment of your property tax. We urge everyone to ensure that they immediately make payment for all taxes that are in arrears or enter into an installment payment plan with the Inland Revenue Department. Linking our duty-free concessions policy for our corporate entities to the status of their tax obligations. Therefore, corporate entities which are in arrears must first regularize their tax status with the IRD before applying to the Ministry of Finance for concessions on equipment or vehicles for business purposes. Madam President, I can't emphasize enough that some of the big players in our economy are not paying their fair share. Some of them come every year wanting more and more concessions, but are not paying their share, and so not assisting us in terms of gaining the revenue that we need for development. We shall be requesting that all business entities wishing to conduct any transaction with the Nevis Island Administration submit a copy of their tax clearance certificate. This certificate, which is issued by IRD, will detail the tax status of that business entity. Put differently, if you're running a business and you're doing business with the government, you can't owe the government taxes, refuse to pay, and still come to the government for business from the government. So you must get your tax clearance certificate coming, and then the government will do business with you. We will be linking the annual renewal of the business license for corporate entities to your good standing at the company's registry and to your tax status as it relates to the filing of returns for unincorporated business tax, VAT, and corporate taxes. Put differently, You're not paying, you can't come and say you want a business license. Come in, cooperate with us, partner with us. If you can't pay your tax, then come to an arrangement with us. And let business progress and let us move forward together. We will be discontinuing, I want to emphasize this, we will be discontinuing the practice of granting a waiver of interest and penalties for late payment. We have instead offered installment payment options, and we expect that persons will undertake the necessary discussions and have suitable installment arrangements put in place and honor these arrangements once implemented. Madam President, some people don't pay tax for 20 years, and then they write a letter and say, please waive all the penalty, all the interest. The minister is saying water bill, same thing. They shouldn't have for 20 years, you should cut them off. But the taxes, they write these letters, please waive, please waive, please waive. Sometimes we see where property tax has not been paid for well over a decade. We are saying no more. Pay your tax or come to an arrangement. If you pay on time, there is no interest or penalty, so you don't have to worry about that. We continue to make a concerted effort to persuade our citizenry to be responsible, to honor their tax obligations. It is only fair that as individuals and businesses seek to benefit from the economic engagement with the government, that they pay their share of fees and taxes to allow government the resources to fund critical programs. I again encourage all taxpayers to be responsible citizens and to file and pay their taxes on time. Madam President, to boost economic activity, especially in the construction sector and retail sectors, we will continue our existing policy for fiscal incentives on building materials for all applicants seeking concessions on the First-Time Homeowners Program, which is designed to incentivize first-time construction for citizens on St. Kitts and Nevis. As it relates to the Build and Renovate program, which I referred to earlier, we implemented that in 2025 to provide relief for persons renovating or extending their property. This program will continue into 2026, but with modifications, so as to ensure that concessions granted under this program are more targeted to meet the needs of the more vulnerable persons within our community. And let me just pause here. Madam President, you know what we've seen with this program? Is those with the big villas in the hills, including some in the Four Seasons, what the word of the moment is enclave, who are coming forward to benefit from this. We are saying that we want these concessions to be more targeted and to benefit, I don't like to use the term, but I will use it, the ordinary man and woman in Nevis. The rich people can already afford to pay, but they are the ones, based on the statistics, who are benefiting most. So the extent of the concession will now be linked to the assessed value of the property being renovated. All applicants will now be required to submit a copy of their most recent property value assessment notice as issued by the Inland Revenue Department when applying for concessions under this program. And this is what we are proposing to do, Madam President. Category 1, applicants whose property has an assessed value of $400,000 or lower. These will be exempt from the payment of customs duties and customs service charge on all applications for building materials to carry out any renovation. Only VAT will be payable on your building materials. Category 2, applicants whose property has an assessed value of over $400,000. These will be exempt from the payment of customs duties only on building materials to facilitate the building process. The customs service charge and VAT will be payable on the building materials. So if you fall $400,000 or lower, you get exempted from customs duty, customs service charge, you only pay VAT. If your property is $400,000 and above, you get exempted from customs duties, but you'll have to pay VAT and customs service charge. That is the proposal. I'm sure as the people at Inland Revenue look at it, they may tighten it up even more. Island-wide, we assessed our existing physical structures that could be utilized to accommodate new business startups. It is quite noticeable that we have insufficient commercial space for leasing or renting to facilitate new businesses. To this end, my government will continue our policy to grant appropriate concessions as incentives to persons wishing to invest in the development of commercial space to facilitate business development. In a similar way, as we incentivize the movement of persons, we are acutely aware that there will be a growing need for more residential dwellings, such as apartment buildings. We will therefore continue our concession program for persons seeking to invest in the construction of apartments and other structures for rental accommodation. Madam President, as it relates to concessions on daily items and supplies for the hotel and restaurant sector, and this is a major announcement, concessions will now be restricted only to the purchase of furniture and equipment. The open-ended policy for concessions on food, wines, liquor, and other daily administrative items will be discontinued, and we're giving them 3 months until March 2026. So come March 1st, 2026, the hotel and restaurant sector, you will now get waivers, exemptions on your importation of furniture and equipment. Currently, and many people who are not aware of this, restaurants and hotels get exemption on other items, food, wine, liquor. We are saying that that has to stop. Over the past 4 years, we have expended tremendous resources via concessions to revive this sector post-pandemic. We are now confident that there has been substantial rebound in activities in this sector. There is no need to continue to grant this expansive level of subsidy via concessions. We want everybody to pay a little more and to pay their fair share. Madam President, in addition to the measures outlined, we will continue to streamline our policy for tax concessions and limit exemptions from the various taxes only to areas as prescribed in relevant legislation, cabinet policy, or when necessary to be used as a short-term tool to drive the long-term benefits of increases in business activities that could ultimately lead to an increase in employment opportunities. We will discontinue the random policy of granting duty-free concessions on vehicles simply because someone is a holder of a business license. Concessions will only be favorably considered where the vehicle forms a critical part of the business activity. The deciding test, as always, will be whether in the absence of the vehicle, the business's core functions will cease to exist. Madam President, what was happening? People were going and paying $2,000 for a business license and then getting $40,000 off in terms of duty. Because once they got the business license, they then said they wanted duty-free vehicle. And so we are saying that your vehicle now must be critical to your business. That way, you get the concession. For those who wanted to import luxury vehicles, you know, people involved in construction and import a Mercedes motor car. What does that have to do with the construction activity that they're involved in? So we are saying that we need to stop those practices, and we want to incentivize business. If you have construction, you want a truck, a pickup, come and talk to us. But if you want a Mercedes Jeep, that is not available to you. We will, however, grant a 50% reduction on the import duties on all fully electric vehicles into Nevis. The remaining 50% of customs duties plus VAT and customs service charge will be payable. Even as we implement these fiscal measures regarding revenue collection, we must also be responsible as a government and streamline our expenditure to avoid waste, duplication, and overpayment for services rendered to government. A lot of people, Madam President, overcharge the government. I don't know why. But whenever it's government, they say government can't feel, and so they charge more. We are putting in place systems to prevent that. Wherefore, we will continue our initiative which began in 2025 to revamp some of our social programs to ensure that the programs reach the intended targeted groups, such as our single parents, the elderly, and those at the lower end of the income bracket. The government's role is to help those who genuinely need that help, and so means testing will be mainstreamed across all government social programs to ensure that our already scarce resources truly reach those in need. We will continue to streamline expenditure on overseas travel and limit travel for all public servants, including members of cabinet, to instances where travel is fully funded by external agencies or deemed critical to the daily functioning of government. We shall substantially reduce the number of funded vacant positions within our budget as a means of narrowing the budget deficit and curbing the growth of the public service. Only positions which are critical to the effective functioning of the public service are fully funded, or positions to which officers are on leave and expected to return to their post in the new year. In addition, we will minimize the employment of any new officers in the public service. We'll seek to look inwards to fill vacant positions. We shall realign our existing non-established workers' pension scheme to fall in line with the Pensions Amendment Act 2025, which was passed in the Federal Parliament earlier this year, as it relates to the calculation and payment of retirement benefits to those workers who are retiring from the public service having attained the age of 62 years. We had a policy in place, Madam President, before the law was implemented. We felt that it was necessary to put a policy in place. We are now giving notice that we will be implementing the law, not the policy. So the policy, we're throwing that out the door, and we're implementing the law. The team tells me that the NIA should save some money by implementing the law. Put differently, the policy was more generous than the law. The above measures are a clear indication that we are indeed taking a proactive approach to revenue generation and to management of our expenditure. Madam President, let me turn now quickly to our fiscal projections. The budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2026 is set at $284.4 million, an increase of 4% when compared to the budget of $273.2 million, which was set for the fiscal year 2025. We have allocated the amount of $203.5 million to recurrent spending, representing 72% of the total expenditure. This is on par with our recurrent expenditure budget of $203.8 million approved for this current fiscal year. Madam President, having considered the expected uptick in economic activity for the upcoming fiscal year, my administration has set its revenue budget and anticipates that it can collect the amount of $175.8 million in recurrent revenue, which represents a modest increase of 7% when compared to the projected revenue of $164.7 million budgeted for the fiscal year 2025. It is no secret that our Citizenship by Investment program has slowed dramatically to the extent that the projected annual revenues have fallen way below that which was realized in previous years. Considering this, we are projecting that our annual share of revenue from the CBI program will fall below the $66 million previously received. To be conservative, we have budgeted the amount of $35 million as a moderate share of revenue from the program for the upcoming fiscal year. Even though we have made this modest projection, we are still hopeful that the actual revenue will surpass this amount, thus providing additional revenues to fund the daily expenditure of government. Madam President, I am to announce that through negotiations with the federal government, an agreed share of 25% of CBI flows will now come to the NIA, realizing the long advocated for position of my government that such revenue be shared on a pro rata population basis. In addition, we expect to receive the amount of $4.8 million in grant funding to supplement our revenue. These remittances of approximately $39.8 million, when combined with our projected revenue collections of $175.8 million as outlined above, will provide a total overall revenue of $215.6 million for the upcoming 2026 fiscal period. When compared to the projected recurrent expenditure of $203.5 million, it provides a surplus on recurrent budget of $12.1 million. The amount of $80.9 million, has been allocated for the funding of our capital expenditure program. This represents a 17% increase when compared to the amount of $69.4 million that was allocated for the fiscal year 2025. This increase is due largely to the administration's decision to undertake major rehabilitation and expansion work at the Vance Amory International Airport early in the new year. Funding for these works has already been identified, as outlined earlier in this presentation. Additionally, we anticipate that funding for the capital projects as outlined in this budget will be comprised of capital revenue to be realized from the sale of government assets, accessing low-cost funding once available, and receipt of grant funding from regional and international partners. Therefore, Madam President, a summary of resources projected to finance our 2026 expenditure program is outlined as follows. Current revenue, $175.8 million. Projected minimum revenues from CBI passport processing fees, $35 million. Concessionary loans, $24 million. Capital revenue, sale of government assets, $10 million. Other grant funding, $4.8 million. It should be noted that despite the projected 47% reduction in the revenue from CBI to fund our budget of expenditure for the upcoming fiscal year, our overall projected deficit of $34.8 million is a marginal increase when compared to the budget deficit of $27.8 million for this current fiscal year. Madam President, I wish to emphasize that while we have made these projections, the annual budgets are merely projections for revenue and expenditure. The extent to which we roll out expenditure programs will naturally depend on our ability to access funding, especially for executing the items as outlined in our capital expenditure budget. I wish to assure the public that we will not be reckless and we will only seek to undertake projects if the funding is available or can be accessed at low cost in accordance with our debt management strategy. Where funding cannot be accessed at concessionary rates, we will curtail our capital expenditure program and carry forward to fiscal year 2027 any projects which were not executed due to the lack of approved financing. This strategy is borne out in the report from the Director of Audit, with reference that at the end of the 2024 financial year, 13 projects with a combined estimated budget of $4.08 million had not started, including projects which commenced in prior years. The primary reason for this is the unavailability of appropriate funding. Madam President, the major allocations in our expenditure are as follows. The Office of the Premier is allocated funding in the amount of $11.2 million, representing 4% of the total budget. Included in this amount of funds allocated to support our quest for energy sustainability. The Ministry of Finance is allocated funding in the amount of $128.9 million, representing 45% of the total budget. Including this amount of funds allocated to meet our debt servicing obligations and to finance the proposed rehabilitation and expansion work as part of the airport expansion project. The Ministry of Communications and Works is allocated funding in the amount of $33.7 million, representing 12% of the total budget, including this amount of funding allocated for our infrastructure development program. The Ministry of Agriculture is allocated funding in the amount of $17.7 million, representing 6% of the total budget, including this amount of funds allocated for our food sustainability and security, upgrading of our processing facilities, and funding of activities for our annual Culturama celebrations. The Ministry of Health, Gender Affairs and Social Empowerment is allocated funding in the amount of $43 million, representing 15% of the total budget, including this amount of funds allocated for providing improvements in the quality and delivery of health care, recruitment of medical professionals, purchasing of supplies and equipment, delivery of our social protection agenda, and funding construction work that is anticipated at the Alexandra Hospital expansion program. The Ministry of Tourism is allocated funding in the amount of $6.5 million, representing a meager 2% of the total budget. Ministry of Tourism is what earns the money, but my colleagues don't allocate much to me at all. Including this amount are funds allocated for developing and maintaining our historical sites and other tourist attractions. The Ministry of Education, Library Services, Information Technology, Youth and Sports is allocated funding in the amount of $38.5 million, representing 14% of the total budget, including this amount of funding for our TVET program, funding for programs for our youths, along with upgrading and general maintenance and infrastructure of our sporting and educational facilities. Incidentally, Madam President, I think it's a badge of honor for this administration that collectively the Ministry of Health, Gender and Social Empowerment, and the Ministry of Education, Library Services, Information Technology, Youth and Sports combine for 39% of the annual budget allocation. Madam President, the words that we've all been waiting for all morning. In conclusion, today I have sought to lay out in a thorough and exhaustive manner my government's agenda for development over the medium to long term. It is a well-established fact that good governance and a stable economic environment are essential for job creation and growth as we seek to build a sustainable future. We have clearly articulated our policies for economic expansion and fiscal consolidation, our policies for creation of employment, policies on crime prevention, on debt consolidation, infrastructure development, and our programs to empower our citizens to achieve their full potential. These programs and policies over the ensuing years will transform the economy in a positive way. We have sought to diversify through the development of additional products for the financial services sector, embracing the film industry, while continuing to nurture and promote the traditional sectors of construction, tourism, and the retail trades. Madam President, there is no doubt that the issue of globalization and the opening of the one world market for trade has transformed the way we do business. This has brought about a fundamental change in our development paradigm to that of a new economy which is driven primarily by knowledge, innovation, and entrepreneurship. In this new era, government must now seek to be an enabler by promoting and developing an institutional framework and incentives that promote economic growth and business opportunities. The goal of my government will be to continue to create policies that will facilitate the transformation of our economy through the embracing of new, bold, and innovative methods. Finally, Madam President, I wish to express thanks to the citizens and residents of Nevis for the faith and confidence they continue to place in my government to manage the affairs of this, our beloved island. At the appropriate time, our citizens and residents will have an opportunity to evaluate our performance and make an informed decision on the type of leadership that this CCM-led administration has provided over the past months and the type of leadership that we will want for our country going forward. I have no doubt that this administration will gain high commendation for our sterling performance in leading and managing the affairs of this country and for advancing the interests of the people of Nevis in particular, even in the most difficult of times. To our people, I again express my profound gratitude for your faith and your confidence. To P.S. Dorr and the entire team at the Ministry of Finance, I extend my gratitude for all the hard work that goes into preparing these documents on an annual basis. And I extend gratitude to all the ministries as well, because it is their input that informs what we say here during our budget debates. May the upcoming Christmas season be joyous, and it is my hope that you will face the new year filled with assurance and hope for a brighter and more prosperous future for you and your families, and indeed for all the citizens and residents of this, our wonderful island of Nevis. Madam President, I so move.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for Nevis 2 and mover of the bill.
And you were just listening to the On the Mark program, which featured the Nevis Island Administration 2026 budget address at the Assembly Chambers in Charlestown, which was first aired on Tuesday, 2nd December 2025. The budget address was delivered by Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited or its advertisers.